That is the sound and the song of what a freaking fight card that was. That's what we're calling the song. What a freaking fight card it was. UFC Austin delivered in spades. We had high expectations for it from the get-go, and it actually exceeded those expectations by a wide margin. And in the end, Josh Emmett picks up the biggest win of his career, a split decision win over Calvin Kattar in the main event. He called for a title shot against the winner of the Alexander Volkanovski-Max Holloway trilogy fight at UFC 276 coming up in 2 weeks from tonight. And we'll see if Josh Emmett will get that spot. But man, what a card this was from start to finish. We're very excited to talk all about it. I am Mike Keck. Thank you for joining us. And joining me right now, AK was supposed to be here. I don't know what the hell he's doing, but we got the man Jose Youngs. There's AK, and there is Jose. Hopefully, refreshed from that trip to Singapore. But I mean, how could you not be after this card? This card was electric. It probably woke you up a little bit, even if you were a little tired, right?
It felt real weird watching a fight on TV. This is why I think I did like 4 or 5 straight of UFC fights live. So I'm like, get over these commercials, dog. Like I just want to be, I want to hear the punches. But let's see if I remember how to do these post shows. I haven't done one since God knows when.
Well, let's start with the most MMA post-show type of question, because this is such a recency bias sport, and you have been on the road covering these cards, and you've been there for some pretty big moments, but we've been pretty spoiled thus far in 2022. We've had some big fights. We've had some fun events. UFC London comes to mind. 275 was great this past Saturday. Columbus was good. This was excellent. And I know it just happened, so maybe we favor it a little bit more because we just saw it, but was this the best card of the year, start to finish, in your eyes?
No. I'd probably put it second or third. UFC London, I think, because if you just talk about excitement and all that kind of stuff, like this one had a lot of exciting finishes and everything, but I just think UFC London had a lot more. There was just something different in the air, especially because, like, it was the first time they'd been to Europe since the pandemic. They'd had canceled like 2 planned London trips before. It was like, we always joke about how there's like a lot of Vegas cards and other fight cards in the US, like the prelims, it's pretty dead in the arena, but like the London card was almost packed to the brim for the second fight of the night. So I would still probably put the London card first, especially because you saw the Brits win that fight. Not that that's going to happen every time, but it was just, I feel like all the pieces, all the pogs fell into the right place and all the marbles rolled the right way. And then UFC 275, if you want to argue, is better. I'm not going to argue against it, mostly because that title fight was pretty epic. Valentina looked human. Joanna retired. It just felt like there was a lot more newsworthy things happening and a lot more high-level fights between high-level individuals. This one was great. If you want to tell me UFC Austin was better than UFC 275, I'm not going to argue that either. To me, I still stick UFC London at the top.
Yeah, I mean, the crowd plays such a factor, and the crowd was alive for this one, especially for Adrian Yanez, for Kevin Holland. It seemed like there was a very pro Calvin Kattar crowd because Kattar's sister lives in Texas, so there's probably a huge contingency. The Kattar Mania t-shirts are probably running wild, and that's where we'll start, Jose, because there isn't like a big argument on Twitter with how this fight is scored, but it seems like the majority of folks scored it for Calvin Kattar. 48-47 across the board, all 3 judges' scorecards. 1 scored it for Kattar, 2 scored it for Josh Emmett. Clearly not a robbery, but how did you score it?
I had a 3-2 for Josh Emmett, but look, I think me, like most everyone else watching that fight, had a 2-2 going into the final round. And then that 5th round, if you want to, again, it's like I said this to AK on Twitter, it's pretty much just like Felder versus Dan Hooker. Someone's going to be bothered by the scorecards, and it could have gone either way. Like, if you want to tell me Paul Felder beat Dan Hooker, so be it. If you want to tell me Calvin Kattar beat Josh Emmett, so be it. I'm not going to argue one way or another. I scored for Josh Emmett. I'm pretty sure you scored for Calvin Kattar. When you say the majority of people scored for Calvin Kattar, what's that, 6-4? Out of 10 people, probably 6 scored it for Calvin Kattar, so it's like 1 more. So, yeah, technically a majority. That's all you need for a majority. But it's not a robbery. If you want to, if you look at the numbers, sure, if you want to go by that. But Calvin Kattar punched Josh Emmett a lot more, and Josh Emmett punched Calvin Kattar a lot harder. So it's like, what do you score? How do you want to score that? It was an awesome fight. I scored for Emmett, you scored for Calvin Kattar, and I hope eventually we can see this fight again down the line.
What's interesting is like you look at the scorecards and you're thinking the 48-47s. There was one clear round in the fight. One clear round. Round 4 for Calvin Kattar. I mean, there is
100%.
no doubt about it. That was the clearest round of the fight. 1 was close. I scored it for Kattar. 2 was close. I scored it for Kattar. 3 was an Emmett round to me. And a lot of people scored 5 for Kattar. I have to rewatch the fight because when you're live blogging and trying to live recap, it's so hard to really pay attention. But Chris Lee, I think Chris Lee kind of screwed Calvin Kattar because scoring the 4th round for Josh Emmett, I mean, there's just no way. I'm sorry.
Like, if you ask me if it's a robbery based on the scorecards they actually put out, then yes, it is a robbery because you can't formulate a coherent sentence while you're trying to argue that Josh Emmett won round 4. You just can't. You can't do it. So I think Josh Emmett won, but based on the facts in front of me, because that's how I like to deal with these things in MMA. The facts are these are the 3 scorecards in front of me, and there's no way, like, that is a robbery. Giving Josh Emmett round 4 is a robbery, and if that's what tipped it in favor of Josh Emmett winning, then that's a big problem.
I will say early on in the fight, at least for the first 3 rounds, I actually thought Kattar's game plan was very solid. Like, don't be a little cautious, land the jab, start adding in that elbow, which he was doing. And I think that elbow landed a lot more than he was being given credit for on the broadcast, which is why I might have given him some rounds that maybe others did not. But I felt like the game plan really didn't evolve much. It was just, I think it was a little too cautious from Calvin. And I think that kind of cost him. I think if he turned the volume up just a little bit more, especially in that 5th round, maybe it's a different fight. But listen, I'm not in there. I ain't Tyson Chartier. I ain't Rob Font. But that's just like from the outside looking in, I was just like, man, I think they're going to be looking back at this thinking maybe we should have just turned up the volume a little bit more and just made this a little more clear. But yeah, man, tough, great fight. I mean, great fight. I'm not taking anything away from either guy, but I feel like
it was a high-level martial arts competition that delivered for the state of Texas, and I just wish that one scorecard wasn't. I wish we were talking about the fight and not that silly scorecard.
Yeah, it was a tremendous fight. Josh Emmett gets on the microphone, Jose, and he just looks at Dana White. DC didn't even ask him a question about what he wanted next. He just answered everything in one shot. He just wanted to go out and have some beers at the Austin breweries. Just answered all the questions that he was about to be asked. And he said, hey, Dana, this big fight coming up, July 2nd, UFC 276. I'm going to be sitting cage side to see who I'm fighting next. Give me my shot. Did this win give Josh Emmett what he wants, or does he still need to win another fight? Maybe 2 at this point.
It might, honestly, like I know a lot of people like to joke and poke fun at Dana White and what he says and how he hands out title shots and his weird saying of like timing is everything when it came to Zhang Weili versus Joanna getting the title shot when Marina Rodriguez was, not fighting. So it's like that was a little weird, but like the timing might just work out for Josh because like Arnold Allen doesn't have a fight and who's the guy that just won? Was it a couple weeks ago? Wow, I'm gonna forget. He won on the Jairzinho fight card. Yes. He's also he doesn't have a fight. So like there's a lot of other featherweights on the rise that I realistically like say Holloway and Volkanovski were fighting in the Abu Dhabi card in October or on the November card in Madison Square Garden. And then Josh Emmett would have to wait a long time. I personally, and I'm not trying to give Josh Emmett's team any sort of advice on what he should do because they're the professional fighters and coaches, not me. I would probably get my fighter on the same time. So like fight one of those also because selfishly, I just want to see Arnold Allen fight Josh Emmett really badly and all those featherweights. But the 2 weeks, he's pretty banged up. And then I assume based on the first 2 fights between Volkanovski and Holloway, it's going to be one of those grueling fights that someone's going to have a lot of bruises on their face. So the timing, honestly, might just line up for a 4th quarter title fight for Josh Emmett. So should he take a second fight before that title fight? Maybe wait to see what happens because like I always say, let's not match make before the fight happens because someone could, Joe Lauzon weighed in and then he didn't fight. Donald Cerrone weighed in Phoenix and they didn't fight. So let's wait for the fight to finish before we see who's healthy and whatnot. But timing might just work out for Josh Emmett in terms of a title fight.
We'll see what happens with the Yair and Ortega. And hi, AK. How are you, buddy?
I'm good. I'm doing great. What a fun card.
It was a fun card.
That's it, guys. All right, I'll see you later. That's all I want.
See you later, AK. It's
I just dropped it.
Yep.
That's it. Mic drop.
That's hilarious.
What a way to end the show.
AK.
Uh-huh.
Is there going to be a robbery review on this fight?
I don't think so. As people know, I don't watch fights to score them as closely on actual fight night. You know, usually I'm watching. I'm looking for the big swings. I have the commentary on, so not always the best indicator of who's winning a fight, but I like to have that on just to get some vibe of what's going, because we're working on other stuff. So, but from what I saw, like it is a fight that needs to be watched closely, which is why I don't want to give like a hard verdict on it. But it did look super competitive. It did look like a fight where the stats are going to say one thing. But then if you watch the fight, you know, that's another aspect that really strongly has to be considered, because the stats aren't necessarily going to reflect sort of necessarily the power of, you know, Emmett's punches or the power of Kattar's punches, for example. I think everyone watching, the general idea was that, you know, Emmett was hitting harder, Kattar was hitting more, and that's fine. Like that's reflected on the on-screen stats. I haven't looked at the official post-fight stats, which they usually have pretty quickly. I'll pull them up now. But again, it's really hard for us to say. Casey always kind of brings this up. Like it can always look like someone's hitting harder, but I mean, those jabs from Kattar, could have been doing like nearly as much damage as Emmett's, you know, those kind of winging bombs he throws. So it was a super close, like back and forth fight. I don't mind people disagreeing with the decision. I saw a lot of Kattar scorecards out there, but I think calling it a robbery is crazy. It's just a really competitive fight, and you know, I think if everyone gets a chance to get a second look at it, they won't be too upset. We have the scorecard on the screen there.
This is why I asked this question. Okay, look at
round four, 10-9, Chris Lee. Questionable, and it was literally. And again, if he had just scored that, if he had just scored that correctly, Calvin Kattar's walking out with a split decision win now. So yeah, listen, I don't know if people are mad because they bet on the fights, or again, they're Calvin Kattar fans, or again, they're just fans of proper judging. But this is one, it's hard to call it controversial. That one score definitely is, but again, the way the fight was, I don't think anyone can say like Emmett didn't do enough to win. I don't think anyone can say that like definitively, but then you could also make the same argument for Kattar. So this is just a close fight. Fights, not all close fights are robberies and things like that. So I'm just looking at the official stats now. Again, they're what people would think. Huge round for Kattar in the fourth, 41 significant strikes to 21, and it's not like a Rob Font, Cheeto Vera situation where, you know, Emmett landed some big bomb in there to change the momentum. But I don't know, maybe that's what Chris Lee saw somehow. He's cage side, we're not. But that looks like a pretty clear Kattar round. That looked like a pretty clear Kattar round watching, and the stats seem to back that up.
Waiting to see what the bonuses are. I'm looking on social media. Apparently some folks know what the bonuses are. I hope the UFC just gives everybody a bonus. This is one of those cards where all the finishers get bonuses, because I mean, it was just such a crazy card. It was such a ridiculous card. Kevin Holland looked pretty damn good tonight, did he not? AK, good Lord. Dude's thwarting perfume robberies.
Helen Yee, who's on site, Dana White said everyone who got a finish tonight got a bonus plus main event was fight of the night.
There you go. So technically, I won the bonus off, right? Because I was correct in my. I picked Yanez, Holland, and Emmett Kattar fight of the night. So I win, right? Because I was the only one to guess the fight of the night.
Producer Casey, do you want an official ruling on this, or let him have it?
Gotta win something.
We lost Joe. You lost Joe Lauzon to apparently what was not a serious knee injury, and
God,
Calvin Kattar maybe getting robbed. I mean, definitely at least again on that one scorecard. If it was just done properly, then that's a split nod for Calvin Kattar. So
for 30 on Joe Lauzon's UFC Austin fight week. And maybe just the last couple months of Cerrone versus Lauzon, but they did fight.
You got to throw in the street taco stuff. You got to throw that in too. Absolutely,
it's insane. It's all part of it. It's absolutely insane. Joe Lauzon hurts his knee putting socks on.
The rumored taco joint that Cowboy got sick from is literally about 10 feet away from my apartment.
So you're going to do some investigative reporting and check out these tacos for yourself.
I go once a week, and I have never gotten sick.
Okay.
But
He said it was.
But I'm also a brown man, so tacos probably hit me a lot easier than someone from not from Mexico.
Well, Cerrone himself also refused to blame the street tacos. He said there's no way. He said everyone ate there. I'm the only one that got sick. He's like, my kids ate there, my team ate there. He's like it wasn't that.
Let's stop disparaging the great establishment that is Taco Boys in downtown Phoenix.
Shout out Taco Boys. And I wish
gang.
I wish Donald Cerrone would fight for better fighter negotiation rights the way he fights for street tacos, because he was very adamant that he did not want street tacos into this controversy.
You can only argue for one, and there's clearly a priority for one.
He's made his choice.
Come on.
Well, a man who also made a choice this week was Kevin Holland, and made a choice to stop a man who stole some perfume on Friday. And then on Saturday, goes out there and just puts it on Tim Means in the first round. Almost put Tim away. Tim just showing a lot of grit and heart and determination, hung around. And then Holland just put that Darce choke in the second round, gets the second round submission, gets on the mic, and he calls out Sean Brady, AK. What did you think? How would you grade Kevin Holland's night in Austin tonight? Just between the performance, the mic work, everything. What did you think?
The more alleged superheroism, apparently, according to his manager, another crime stop. Yeah, it's a great. I love the call out. I actually, again, was working on something, so I didn't see it live until our story went out, and I saw that headline. I was like, okay. I was like, that's a great call out. Now, Sean Brady has been kind of angling for a bigger fight. So for Sean Brady, that's having to fight a guy behind you. But if you're Sean Brady, it's also a guy who has a name. Is actually probably has a bigger name than you, if we're being honest. Kevin Holland makes headlines again for both his stuff outside the cage and that incredible 2021 campaign. So he might be lower ranked, but he is a bigger name. So I don't know if Kevin Holland is also thinking like playing some chess here and thinking, will Sean Brady take this fight? For the reasons that I just mentioned. Because if he did, I mean, it's perfect. It's perfect. I don't know if how close we are to making this happen, but I think Sean Brady, that's the way to go. Go up against a guy with a big name. You take him out. Yeah, it's not gonna jump him up the rankings the way he's looking to, but it's Kevin Holland would be a very, very nice name to have on his resume if you were able to beat him. And same goes for Kevin Holland. Sean Brady is right now like the golden boy prospect at 170. You maybe even beyond prospect at this point. And if Kevin Holland were to beat him, look, I've been saying I said after tonight, if he beats Tim Means, he's the real deal. I mean, that's two solid veterans, Alex Oliveira and the Dirty Bird. And now if he took out another rising contender, 3-0 at 170, man, Kevin Holland done it again. Another a guy who was top 10 at 185 could be top 10 at 170 soon.
So breaking news, a little breaking news bed, Casey. I know. I mean, it's breaking news. I just heard from Mr. Brady to get his reaction to this call out from Kevin Holland. And he said, and you've probably seen on social media, so I'm not going to name names, but he said he's working on something else right now. The UFC is pushing for this thing that he is hoping to get. And if for some reason it doesn't happen, he would be thrilled to fight one Kevin Holland. So Sean Brady's in, but he's got something else apparently that's on the stove, trying to cook that up real nice. And if for some reason the date's expired and it doesn't happen, he has to throw it in the trash. Kevin Holland, he will welcome into the octagon. So there's Sean Brady's response, a little exclusive here on the UFC Austin post-fight show. But great performance for Kevin Holland. Jose, what do you think of welterweight Kevin Holland and the guy? It took him a round really to just kind of get his bearings under him with the Cowboy Oliveira fight. But since that first round ended, this dude has been like a man possessed in there.
This is the most impressed I've ever been with Kevin Holland, and that's even including like the Jacare Souza knockout and going 5-0 in like 8 months or whatever that is. Because even the Jacare fight, Jacare had him down, and I just feel like Jacare just wasn't taking it seriously. They were literally laughing at each other when he got punched in the face. And Tim Means took this fight seriously, tried to take him down, and Kevin Holland, who has routinely said he's bad at wrestling, had very good takedown defense, and then choked out Tim Means. So Kevin Holland probably should have dropped down to welterweight a long time ago, but he just kept winning and taking fights on short notice and getting paid a lot of money to do that. I don't think he could take fights on short notice like that at welterweight. His weight cut's probably not hard, but it's not the easiest. It's not like he can just walk in and weigh in like he does at middleweight. So should have done this a long time ago. There's a lot of fun fights for him at welterweight. But yeah, I have never, ever been more impressed with Kevin Holland than I have in this fight. He also just looked more focused in there in general. Like, remember when who was he fighting? Brunson, when he was like talking to Khabib, like sitting cage side the whole fight? Was that fight? When he was just walking around talking to the crowd, both fights, they just bleed together for me. He lost like 10 straight rounds of just being wrestled. Yeah, and he stunned Derek Brunson a few times, but then he got taken down and was like talking to Khabib and Daniel Cormier in the middle of the fight. He wasn't doing any of that. He was all business in this fight card. So, yeah, he was obviously having fun in there, but he was even telling the crowd to stop booing Tim Means. So, yeah, very impressed with Kevin Holland. And I don't want to see him fight Sean Brady. I want to see him fight Daniel Rodriguez, because that's the fight I want to see him fight today when he called him out in his last fight. So just make the Daniel Rodriguez fight. They can just slap each other for three rounds or 5 rounds, and I will be a happy boy.
That's a great fight. I love that idea as well. Can't really go wrong with this. But I loved Kevin Holland's response because, I mean, ever since UFC Boston in October of 2019, Kevin Holland's been talking about going down to 170. He just never did it. And he said, once I do it, it's going to be great for me because then I'll actually approach this game with a bit more discipline, because I have to focus and use discipline to get to 170. When he's fighting at middleweight, he could just wake up on weigh-in day and just step on the scale, and he's 186 at worst.
Everyone in the comment section seems to want him to fight Randy Brown. Like, I've saw that a lot. Or Michel Pereira.
I think Bilal suggested it. I think Bilal throw Randy Brown's name out there for him. And then,
is it just because they're both tall and lanky? Is that why?
I think they're around the same, like, we would be around the same area in most people's rankings. But I mean, yeah, that's certainly part of it. But yeah, and Randy Brown responded. I think he said that wouldn't be good for his record or for his prospects at 170 if that happens. So I think a little trash talk there.
I like it. That's a good fight. Yeah, I like what I'm seeing with Kevin Holland at 170. Can't go wrong, and we'll see what happens. But just another piece of this just really exciting card that got over. Joaquin Buckley, great win over Albert Duraev. Best Joaquin Buckley's looked in his career. I know. Amazing. Yeah, I know he's had some incredible moments. He's in the Bob O'Reilly package for the UFC probably multiple times, but this is one of those fork in the road kind of fights.
Like, stuck him in a music video, which is something that is infinitely bigger than anything anyone in the UFC will do right now outside of Conor McGregor.
Damir Ismagulov, great fight against Guram Kutateladze. Could have gone either way. If you're Guram's team, I think you have a case to say that you were Herb Deaned in this fight because of the not illegal knee that was called. Could have been the difference of the fight, honestly. And in the end, Ismagulov wins at first majority decision, because it was read at 28-28, which is just, I was actually angry when I heard that, literally angry. But then the great Brendan Fitzgerald calmed me down, clarified. It was actually a 29-28 Guram card, thus making it a split decision. Gregory Rodriguez doing Gregory Rodriguez things. Mike Beltran probably could have saved Julian Marquez from about 40 extra punches, but Julian actually got a big shot in and made things interesting, but Rodriguez just beat him up. But I want to talk about Adrian Yanez, AK. This guy was a hero in Austin. Biggest pop of the night. People were excited. It was not just the Adrian Yanez show. They weren't just happy to see him fight, but they were happy to see him fight Tony Kelley. Tony Kelley played the villain role to perfection, flipping off the Austin crowd at ceremonial weigh-ins, flipping on the way to the octagon. Adrian Yanez goes out there, just runs him over. The first left hand Adrian landed, which didn't seem like it had a lot of impact. You could tell right away Tony was like, uh-oh.
Speaking of
Adrian Yanez
we lost Mike.
We lost Mike.
There's a big well, anyway, I think Mike wanted us to discuss Adrian Yanez. So listen, I'll just say Adrian Yanez has been so smart about leaning into the whole controversy with Tony Kelley. Listen, maybe he even owes Tony Kelley for being a bit of a Dumas and causing this controversy in the first place, because they were already booked to fight, when the incident in the Andrew Lee corner happened. So everyone, that's why even on that night, people were like, man, I hope Adrian Yanez beats this guy's ass when they meet up. So, and he was smart to lean into it. Not everyone is comfortable doing that. Like, some people, when there's a narrative that starts surrounding their fight, they kind of want to shy away from it. Jeff Molina, I think, is a good example recently. He was very happy to wear sort of the pride shorts, but at the same time, if you listen to his interviews later, he was kind of like, oh, I don't regret doing it at all, but I do kind of think it's kind of weird that I'm like getting all this credit for something that's like just being a good human being and civil. So like he kind of didn't want it to distract from like what was a really good win for him in his most recent fight. Adrian Yanez, on the other hand, it was like as soon as that Tony Kelley down, he's like my Brazilian fam, don't worry, I got you. I'm going into. He was totally into it. He every opportunity he got, he would tweet about like, oh yeah, I'm definitely going to shut this guy up and all that. For the pre-fight stuff, he was into it. Man, just flipping him off at the end of the fight, reciprocating kind of what Tony Kelley did at the start of the fight. That stuff was awesome. And then in the promo after, like, again, just repeating why he was so jazzed up for this fight, why he felt he had to knock out Tony Kelley. They were talking crap to each other after, like before the decision was read. Aaron Bronstetter from TSN reported there was, because we got on the Canadian broadcast, we got in between round stuff on Fight Pass. Oh, well, this is on the main card, but either way, we got some in between round stuff. I don't know if it was all on ESPN Plus, but so there's some trash talk there. And then, yeah, listen, people have really embraced it. He's like an honorary Brazilian. He did this for all his Brazilian homies and homiettes out there, and it couldn't have been a better night for him. It was super exciting knockout. I felt like Kerry Hatley might have allowed a few extra shots in there, so that was kind of ugly, but a lot of people seem to enjoy that too. I abhor violence, as people know, so I don't approve, regardless of how I feel about Tony Kelley's comments and general attitude. But it looked like he got his comeuppance and then some. If that is what people were looking for.
Jose, we see these performances from time to time where fighters are like hardcore fans' delights. Their prospects are excited about. The hardcores know who he is. They all love him. They can't wait to see him. And then you have sort of a performance in a moment where you cross over not just from the hardcore fans' delight, but now you reach a different kind of audience. You take that next step, not quite at superstar, but you take that step from hardcore guy to, a guy more people know, on the cusp, the precipice, if you will, of maybe becoming a star. And then you take that next step after that. Do you feel like Yanez took that step from sort of the exciting prospect, the hardcore fans' delight, into the casual fans are familiar with him now? Was the performance, the reaction after everything that happened, did that take Yanez up a level in the eyes of fans consistently?
Nope, because casual fans don't watch fight nights often. They usually watch the pay-per-view. So should it? Yes. I'm going to say a big hard no. And that's unfortunate because I think Adrian Yanez is a future superstar, future title challenger, and I'm without a doubt one of the more exciting. I'm going to still call him a prospect. Mostly because he hasn't fought anyone in the top 15 yet. He's without a doubt the most exciting prospect at bantamweight, one of the most exciting prospects in all of MMA. I wish he got, some of the promotional push too, because we see these fighters that do cross over to the quote unquote casual fans. The UFC gets behind them, and I didn't see a lot of what, like, the UFC wasn't pushing this Adrian Yanez fighting a guy who said racial things, because the UFC doesn't want people to know that one of their fighters said racial things to another fighter to hype her up. They weren't pushing that narrative. So naturally, the casual fans didn't know that was the narrative, because if they're flipping, hey, it's also on ESPN Plus. This was on UFC on ABC, maybe. If someone is, for whatever reason, is just surfing ESPN Plus, if that's a thing that people do, and they say, I'm going to turn this on, and they turned on the Adrian Yanez fight, they probably didn't know that story. They just said, oh, this Hispanic dude from like Southeast Texas just beat this dude with a bunch of goofy tattoos. So awesome performance, but I don't think anyone from the quote unquote casual realm noticed it, and that's super unfortunate. So I think he needs, like, if he does that to Sean O'Malley, the answer is obviously yes. If he does someone in the top 15, the answer is obviously yes. Just this wasn't the performance that got him there yet. Like his best performance to date, and it should have gotten him all the star power in the world. I don't think the metrics will show it to the casual fans.
Yeah, I can definitely see where you're coming from there, but I mean, Tony Kelley just leaning into all of it.
Yeah. Did he miss weight?
He missed weight. Yeah. And then so at the end, during that conversation that Aaron sort of transcribed on Twitter, It was Tony Kelley telling Adrian Yanez that he wasn't out, and Adrian's like, "Yeah, dude, you were out." And Tony Kelly's response was, "Nah, I wasn't out. You were out."
I'm not dumb.
Just
You're
very,
dumb.
yeah, very Pee Wee Herman. I know you are, but what am I? Infinity from Tony Kelley, and huge win. Great performance from Adrian Yanez. Sent the UFC Austin faithful home happy. Roman Dolidze kicked things off with a nasty knee. Not a lot of people saw him going out there and finishing Kyle Dawkins the way he did, but he did the damn thing. Phil Haas just put it on Deron Winn. I mean, that was about as vicious of a beating as you will see in the middleweight division. Incredible performance from Phil Haas, who is now no longer Megatron. He is no hype. I believe that's what the nickname was. No hype.
Stop it.
And
stop. No.
He's ditched Megatron. It's over. It's done.
Megatron wasn't great, but it's no hype.
I believe it's no hype.
According to Topology, it is no hype. This is the worst
no
name
hype.
changes.
Megatron
since,
Megatron is a bad guy that was trying to wipe out all of humanity, and no hype is also very silly.
And it's also Calvin Johnson, great wide receiver from the Detroit Lions.
Fine, fair enough. But this is also as bad. This is almost as bad as Corey Anderson going from Beast in 25-8 to overtime.
No,
yeah,
it was
that's
the
worst.
The worst one was when Hector Lombard went from lightning to show weather. He just literally made up a word.
Was so confusing.
It's a great one.
See, I'm not even mad at that. I'm not even mad at that because that's just confusing. Like maybe it's a great nickname. Maybe it's a great nickname, and like just none of us ever understood what it meant. Because I still don't to this day.
I don't understand what Hector Lombard does most of the time. So I just look at him and say, "Yep, cool, bro," and I just move on.
Yeah. And by the way, props to Phil Haas for coming out to The Rock's WWF theme song. That was incredible. That was amazing. Cody Stamen, great
and then
win
getting
for
into
him.
it with Cormier. Wait, we're not getting him points for getting into it with Cormier for no reason?
Nah, they're friends now. It's okay.
Everyone in the comment section wants to see Phil Haas fight Walking Buckley next.
I'm in for that. Let's go. That's a great matchup. I actually think it makes a lot of sense. And
see that I saw that
the most muscular middleweight fight in the history of the UFC.
I mean, that's not true because Romero fought Paulo Costa in Anaheim.
That's the most muscular. That's the second most muscular middleweight fight
you are correct,
of all
sir.
time. That's an excellent point. Yeah, great. Cody Stamen, great win. First finish of the UFC. He's been waiting for that for all of these fights. He finally gets it done. Eddie Wineland had the gloves off. Not sure if he's retired, but I really hope for his sake, the family's sake, and I hate being that guy to get on a microphone and say this guy needs to retire, but I'm not going to say that. I just hope that that's the last time we see him take punches inside that octagon because that was a bad loss.
That was weirdly handled. That was weirdly handled, eh? That was weirdly handled. It looked like we don't know if he's retiring. They mentioned before the fight he had just signed a 4-fight contract, which doesn't mean anything. If you retire, you retire. But yeah, he clearly had the gloves off as the decision was being read. Not the decision, excuse me. The result was being read, and then they just kind of never went back to it. So we never got to see if he tried to leave the gloves in the ring. If he did, and then there was no camera on it, so just okay, we'll pick him back up. We got a fight coming up. They were running through the fight. They're running through the fights pretty quickly on the prelims, which is probably one reason why he didn't have an opening to maybe get an interview and announce a retirement. But something to keep an eye out on. But not official though. He didn't have the chance to announce a retirement,
which is crazy because there's like 7 finishes on the prelims and they actually went overtime. They didn't let the translator get the final answer out for the woman I want to talk about before he gets to the peeps.
His name is Fabiano. Very nice man.
Fabiano.
Yes, he is a very nice man. Good win for Maria Oliveira against Gloria DePaula. I actually scored it for DePaula, but just fun scrap between two scrappers. Ricardo Ramos, holy cow, what a knockout that was. The spinning back elbow, beautifully timed. Jeremiah Wells, the real deal Holyfield. Daniel Gracie fighters in the UFC, still undefeated. Between him, Sean Brady, and Pat Sabatini, put some respect on Renzo Gracie Philly's name right now, and Daniel Gracie is a coach because that team is on
Who's the
fire
cat that
right
just
now.
won a couple weeks ago? He tapped out Maximov.
Oh, and
Petrosky.
Yeah,
Petrosky too.
He has that.
I forgot.
He has very
Petrosky as
unfortunate
well.
tattoo. He has an unfortunate tattoo, but he's the man when he fights.
Yeah.
Jeremiah Wells looked great, but If we're talking about great performance, but the person's stock who rose more than anybody's on this entire card, and this is not even a conversation. This is not up for debate or discussion. As great as Adrian Yanez did tonight, Natalia Silva is the winner, and it's not even close. Talk about somebody that no one even gave any thought to tonight. We just thought Jazz Davizis was going to go in there and just get on top of newcomer Natalia Silva and just win a 30-27 decision. Natalia Silva showed up and showed out, AK. Wow. Talk about a debut. 125. We were talking about this on the People's Pre-Fight Show about how 125 is getting love, but it should be getting more love. Now you throw this woman into there. How fun is she? Because she looked phenomenal tonight.
And she's only 25 years old. She's in that young cluster with Casey O'Neill and Aaron Blanchfield and Manel Ferrero. She's over 30, but it only has 10, 12 pro fights. So feel free to throw Natalia Silva's name in there if you want, if you were that impressed tonight, because she was styling on Jazz Davizis. It was just very entertaining to watch. And man, Jazz Davizis looked lost. Probably after like the midway point of round 2. Like, you rarely see a fighter like that, like where you can very visibly see on their face that they have no answer for what their opponent is doing. But that's where Jazz Davizis was. It was kind of scary. It was kind of like scary how lost she was, and how much she was getting the business put on her. So I mean, credit to her, I guess, for making it to the scorecards, not getting finished. But Natalia Silva looked great. And listen, we got to give her all the credit in the world, because we had said on the pre-fight Q&A or the preview show, I can't remember, we were just like, we just admitted we don't know much about her. I was picking holes in her record. I was going like, she was like 7-0, 8-0, 9-0, whatever, or 9-5, 10-5, something like that, when she was facing 1-0 fighters, doing regional fighter stuff. And because I hadn't seen her before, I was thinking like, oh, well, maybe this is why Jazz Davizis is a favorite. We just don't know a lot about her opponent. And, hey, for any Natalia Silva stands out there, I didn't see that many, but if we missed your comment and you guys were bigging Natalia Silva up and telling us to watch out, credit to you. She was absolutely, you're right about the stock, Mike, because to go from essentially pennies on the dollar to, I mean, a lot of people are going to want to buy in now. You can't do much better than that. So, and she kind of got a nice, again, that prelim headliner spot because of the Lauzon and Cerrone fight dropping out. So maybe there was a few more eyeballs on there than there would have been. I don't know. Maybe it didn't make a difference. But great job by Natalia Silva. That was dominant. I mean, that was a dominant flyweight decision.
Yeah, I think she's got sort of Amanda Hebus vibes to her, where if she goes out and gets another win, another impressive performance, maybe she catches the eye of Dana White a little bit more, and maybe she just kind of gets shot up into a big fight real fast. But I mean, it's hard not to be impressed by her. What did you think, Jose? I mean, she's just super fun. That's high-level martial arts at its best tonight.
Yeah, she beat the soul out of another woman on national television in a prime spot, and now people went from not knowing who she was to people knowing who she was. She had an absolutely delightful post-fight interview. I wish she knew what she said. Fortunately, Fabiano didn't get to say it because she talks so much. Yeah, I think the Amanda Hebus comparison is pretty spot on, but maybe 2-3 years ago, shoot her up the rankings, but now 125. Like, a lot of people are saying that, Valentina's cleaned out the division and she doesn't have any fights left and she go to 135. I still want to see Valentina fight Miesha Tate. I still want to see Valentina fight, Alexa Grasso, who has a big fight coming up. Macy Barber has another fight. She filled in for Casey O'Neill coming up, I'm pretty sure. There's a lot, and Manon Ferrero has a big fight at UFC Paris. There's a lot of fights for Valentina I want to see happen. We can add this newcomer to the mix, but let's pump the brakes on shooting her up the rankings and skipping over a lot of women I want to see Valentina fight first.
Oh, yeah, 100%. She's, as Dana would say, she's in the mix comfortably. But I'm with you. Don't shoot her up too high. Jazz Davizis, fine fighter, but no, we weren't really putting her on the same level as like a Miranda Maverick or a Casey O'Neill or anybody really in that echelon just yet. But I mean, what a way to show up in your debut and first fight in over 3 years too, which makes it even more impressive. So good on her. She looked fantastic. With that being said, speaking of fantastic, let's go to the peeps and see what the fantastic peeps have to say. Hopefully, and Casey's here as well. And hopefully people are a little bit nicer in the aftermath of this, because AK took to Twitter and apparently somebody sent you a DM just chastising you, blaming you for one of us saying that we picked Albert Duraev to beat Joaquin Buckley on the People's Pre-Fight Show, and that he changed his mind, and now we are just dunzo. Like, we're just horrible human beings.
Why did I get blasted for this? Why? I was if anything, I was all in on Buckley. If anything, I was telling people that Buckley was a logical upset pick, and some strong language is aimed in my direction by a very kind gentleman or woman with a NFT as a profile picture. So there you go.
They're just mad because they lost 29% of their profile picture.
I was about to say Ethereum. I don't know. I don't know what this.
I don't know. It's all silly magic and fairy dust to me.
Yeah, Fugazi. Yeah.
All right. Here we go.
Do you know Photoshop had a feature to export your images and NFTs? It's the most silly thing I've seen.
What?
Everyone wants in. Everyone wants in.
So let's keep it on Buckley. Let's keep it on Buckley, actually, because we did talk about this on the fan Q&A, but maybe our opinion has changed.
Do you guys think Joaquin Buckley is a top 15 caliber fighter? Jose, let's get your thoughts. He looked great tonight. Is this a top 15 guy? AK seems sold. Me and Casey were like, this guy's going to be a good fighter. People are still going to be excited to watch him. But the question I posed was, is he going to be a top 10 guy? Yeah, I wasn't ready to go that route, but top 15, you think this is a top 15 middleweight?
Nah, not right now. There's a lot more impressive guys that like. If you tell me Dricus du Plessis is going to fight Joaquin Buckley, I'm going to pick Dricus du Plessis, who's not even in the top 15 yet. There are infinitely more interesting names outside of the top 15. Now, is Joaquin Buckley an exciting fight? If you're asking, like pound for pound, most exciting middleweights, Joaquin Buckley is right there. We were talking about, is he going to crack the top 15 of the UFC by the end of the year? I don't think so. A lot of the questions I had about Joaquin Buckley, he actually answered, and with flying, like I thought, after like the first 30 seconds, like he was going to be exhausted in 2 minutes because he was winging shots in there. Not only was he not tired, he just didn't slow down. So I was like, well, if Joaquin Buckley can just have any sort of technique outside of just button mashing Tekken combos at full speed until he knocks someone out, then he's going to be impressive. If he does that nonstop for 3 rounds, he's going to be a super exciting fighter. I just don't know if he's going to be a top 15 guy. I don't know if he can get into the top 15 doing that. I don't even know if he's top 25 right. Like I don't even know if he's top 25. Like if he fights does he beat Brad Tavares right now? Because that Brad Tavares is like the benchmark for the top 15 a lot. Like Izzy fought him, Edmund Shabazian fought him. Like if Joaquin Buckley fights Brad Tavares right now, I don't think he beats Brad Tavares. So maybe in a couple more fights. So not yet.
What I'll say about Buckley, though, because before the fight, I would have said a big no. But Joaquin Buckley is improving, and that's the most impressive part. Every fight, I think after his loss, who did he lose to? The Italian fighter, right? Italian fighter, no, I forget.
Alessio Di Chirico. Yeah.
I think he learned a lot from that, and I think he's actually just becoming a better fighter. Maybe it's because he's making more money. I think he's training full time now. He doesn't have didn't he work at Walgreens or something when he started in the UFC or something? It was like he was like a manager.
He was a pharmacy tech.
Yeah, it was pharmacy tech. So and we don't take it. We as fans and media, we really gotta. It's really hard to take that into account. How much these guys are just focused on their full-time fighting career now. And a lot of times when we first meet them, they're part-time fighters, So I think I'm with Jose. I don't see Buckley being a top 15 guy, but at the rate he is improving, who the heck knows? Because I was super impressed by him tonight, and he's just a much better fighter. Not reinvented, but just more. He's just better. He just controls himself more. He still did those kind of crazy kicks and stuff like that. He tried it. He still wants to. That's still in him. But I actually, my opinion of Joaquin Buckley is definitely going up.
Yeah, he's impressed the hell out of me. But I don't think he beats who just fought. I don't think he beats Jacob Malkoun right now. Jacob Malkoun is a really good wrestler and grappler. And I think he's one of those guys that's going to be like no one's going to want to fight him because he's not in the top 15 and his fights are going to be boring. I don't think Joaquin Buckley even beats him right now.
I don't think so, but Buckley is improving, so I wouldn't be
100%.
shocked. Yeah, and that's why I'm still excited about the Joaquin Buckley, I guess, era.
You do Buckley, Brendan Allen. That's not a bad idea either.
Nah, Brendan Allen wants to fight Fluffy Hernandez. He wants a rematch. I like that fight.
I'm all in
I
on
didn't
Buckley.
know.
Buckley Hawes I love that fight.
I like that fight too.
Yeah, that's a great fight.
I'm out.
Great fight.
I was super high on Phil Hawes, and I think he's kind of hitting that potential that I saw in him, and I think this is a great fight for both those gentlemen.
Yeah, I don't know when I'm going to stop picking against Phil Hawes. I feel like if you go back every time Phil Hawes,
I think
fought,
you're on the other side of the Phil Hawes kind
and
of
yet
bandwagon.
after every time he wins, I think I say, guys, next time I'm done. Guys, I'm done picking against Phil Hawes. I've definitely said this before, at least 2 other times, and yet somehow I keep picking against him, and I don't know why.
All right.
Phil Hawes was so agitated when he fought in New York. It just caught me off guard. It was such an agitated individual he was.
Listen, he's got a little attitude. Like I said, he was agitated with DC. I mean, he just had a big win, and suddenly his focus was suddenly on starting some weird little beef with Cormier. Like,
but I get that. I mean, he's got a chip, and I think in the post-fight interview, I think backstage, I think from where I read online, he was like, "Sorry, I was just a little hyped up." And DC, I thought DC was really good at bringing him down. I think DC understood the situation. He didn't take it personal. Well, he took it a little personal, but he was a professional. It's like, hey, man,
Well, first he had to kind of meet force with force, saying like, "Hey, buddy, relax. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't call you out. I don't know why you're coming out."
He doesn't pick fights.
I don't pick fights. Yeah, like he's like, you didn't beat me, so I don't know where you're coming. So he kind of like confronted force with force first, which like immediately kind of stopped Phil Hawes in his tracks, and then he kind of talked him down. And then the post-fight interview was like just normal. It was like a normal. You couldn't tell because I know you guys didn't get that on ESPN Plus, right? You didn't see that dispute, right?
No.
Yeah.
And anyone who didn't see it wouldn't have known. They wouldn't have known they were like kind of in each other's faces and arguing like 2 minutes before or 30 seconds before the interview took place. DC in general, I will say, I've been so critical of Cormier. I thought him and Cruz were a really good combination tonight. Him and Fitzgerald, of course. Fitzgerald did a great job running the show, as he always does, but did a really good job with these two. Do Cormier and Cruz normally not like? Is this have we just not seen that?
Rarely?
Yeah, we haven't seen this combination in a while, right? I feel like they work really well together. I don't know why. I think there was just a respect there.
I like it a lot.
It's because we've all interacted with Dominic Cruz, and Dominic Cruz, when he's in the room, is without a doubt, in his mind, the smartest man in the room. But he doesn't have 2 championships and doesn't have an Olympic wrestling captain. So I am as much like slack as I give Dominic Cruz. He understands when he fully recognizes when there's someone with more accolades than him. So I think that's what we saw today.
There was one point where Cruz like threw to him like he was Fitzgerald. Like he threw to him like, what happened? He's like, what happened there, DC? You want to break that down for us? And I don't know if I've ever seen Cruz do that before. And like I said, Cruz, like I always say, like as a broadcaster isn't great, but as an analyst is outstanding. And Cormier is also a great analyst, but sometimes when he's with his frat boy, brother Joe Rogan, it brings out the worst in him. But somehow they kind of like hit that right balance of like they were still being like putting on an entertaining broadcast, but they weren't,
but also
not trying too hard. Yeah, not trying too hard. You didn't feel like they were just putting on broadcaster voice to just for the sake of doing it. This was like one of the best broadcasts I've listened to in a while. It was a great card too, which helped, but it was a very easy listen.
It was interesting because I love John Anik, but a lot of what John Anik talks about is like the backstories of these fights and like what happens leading up to this fight. Like he's setting the scene. And Fitzgerald does that, but he doesn't do it nearly as much as Daniel Cormier, and Daniel Cormier clearly doesn't know a lot of these fighters' backstories, and Dominic Cruz doesn't know a lot of these fighters' backstories. And I actually spoke with Laura Sanko after she did the Road to the UFC because it was her and John Gooden that did Road to the UFC, and they didn't know nothing about any of the backstories from any of the fighters in the Road to the UFC. So all they could do was talk about what was happening in front of them, and it was great. And it was the best commentary I heard in a long time, and I think that's part of what we heard tonight too, because like we don't know nothing about these two people, so we're just going to talk about what we can see in front of us.
Yeah, it was a good combination. Fitz set the table very nicely. DC, I agree with that. I thought DC actually dug in pretty well to this card. It seemed like the fighter meetings, he probably asked the right questions because he probably had to like take lead in a lot of ways because Fitz is not really that guy, although Fitz is a tremendous interviewer and things like that. But it was just a great combination because Fitz has like that Massachusetts wit, but it's always kind of hidden. It's there. And DC's just full of bubble and personality and he's funny. And then Dominic Cruz is just not funny at all. And but he's still very smart and intelligent, and it all worked out nicely. Like when Cruz tries to be funny with, like, sometimes like him and Felder and him and Rogan will just like kind of joke around, and it's like you never know if Cruz is actually like joking or if he's really serious. We didn't hear any of that tonight. It was just him talking about fights, DC talking about fights, Brendan Fitzgerald talking about barbecue as a vegetarian, pissing off DC. I mean, we had some nice moments when there weren't fights going on. It was a great broadcast.
It really was.
I saw someone on Twitter say that there was so much time they had to kill that they just used all their material on the commercial breaks, and then they were just like, "What are we talking about now?" So they just had to talk about the fights.
My favorite part of the whole broadcast was after the beginning of the third round in the main event. This is DC being funny. DC goes, "Man, some people are saying it's 2-0 Emmett. Some people are saying it's 2-0 Kattar." And he goes, "Or it could be 1-1."
You know, covering all the bases. That's just good journalism. That's just good journalism. You're covering all the bases.
Best. God, that's the best. Wow. That's terrific.
Facts only. Facts only.
Facts only.
Yeah.
Big and true.
How about this?
Biggest surprise of the card? I think we just answered it before we went to the piece. I think it's got to be Natalia Silva, right? She's got.
But of someone not making their debut, though, what about of someone not making their debut?
I'll say mine. The fight I was most off on, Kevin Holland. I know a lot of people are super high on Kevin Holland. I think Kevin Holland's a very entertaining fighter. I thought Tim Means was going to beat him up tonight, and I was wrong. But I always say this: I love being wrong. And Kevin Holland impressed the heck out of me. You can tell even Tim Means was impressed with the way he got his ass kicked tonight. He was like, "Wow, that was a good job, Mr. Holland." And I really enjoyed that sportsmanship in the cage tonight. And Kevin Holland is he's a legit dude. He's a legit top 15 welterweight. How high he'll go up the ladder, I do not know, but he is a very good fighter, and that was my personal biggest surprise on the card.
That's one of those great fights and moments, so that you show to people who don't watch MMA or have a misconception of what MMA is. Like, because you got an exciting fight, you got the mixing of the martial arts, and then and you also got, like you said, some post-fight sportsmanship and camaraderie that would really surprise people. Yeah, it was nice.
Jose, what was your biggest surprise, or who was your biggest surprise?
I'm gonna take it a different way, in the sense that I can't believe there's only been. I am surprised that there's only, in the history of the UFC, there's only 5 spinning back elbow knockouts, and Ricardo Ramos now has 2 of them. So I can't believe it worked again. So I'm surprised. Not only did he do it, he did it again. So that's what I'm most surprised at. There's only, because I was looking, there's been a bunch of spinning back fists, like people have gotten hurt, but spinning back elbow, it's been Yuri. It's been Ricardo Ramos is 2.
Yeah,
it's been Molly McCann and Dong Young.
Did that count?
I don't know what that was. I'm not sure that's. I don't know if that's the one
they counted as.
Okay, that wasn't.
That's one of one. That's one of one.
That's one of one. All right.
Yeah, and then the Dong Young Kim knocked out was it John Hathaway back in the day?
Yeah, but
like, that's it. There's been 5, and Ricardo Ramos is 2 of them. So I'm surprised that his opponent wasn't like, well, he did this once. Let's not have this happen again, and then it happened again.
It was a beautiful setup too.
And he did not know. He did not know what happened. He didn't see it coming and didn't know what happened after. He was so out of it.
To the point where he was like, "Hey, early stoppage."
Yeah, he said early stoppage. He had no idea.
Me and New York Rick were doing the social media on the site, and I think the UFC photographers are fantastic. Getty was super slow today, and they were really good all night except that fight. They did it. All the shots they got were just a full back, like just Ramos's back, nothing else. They got none of the spinning back, nothing. I'll show you guys after, because I don't have them on file. But like me and Eric were like, oh man, if he was like 3 feet to the right or 3 feet to the left, we could have gotten it.
When you were watching it live, did you even realize what you saw? I thought I couldn't even, because I was kind of watching, but like it kind of came out of nowhere. I was like, did he just? I didn't even know what it was when it initially happened. Much like the Yair knockout of Zombie, you were just kind of confused at first until the replay. I think the photographers were too. They just probably just weren't even taking photos at that time. They're just whatever.
Now, whenever Ricardo Ramos fights, you're just gonna be like, the whole time.
yeah. If you're
Yeah, you have to. You have to. AK, who's your biggest surprise?
Oh, I'm definitely Jeremiah Wells. Not that he won. I picked him to win.
oh yeah, Oof, forgot
But
about
that was
Thank
my, not that I gamble, but when I did the No Bets Barred podcast earlier this week with Jed Mashu, I'm like, my unsolicited, he didn't even ask for it. I said, let me give you my lock of the week as someone who never gambles. I said, this fight's going to a decision. I'm like, Court McGee fights go to a decision. That's what Court McGee does. He goes to a decision. Look at that, he'd lose. I think
Win or
Jeremiah
lose,
Wells.
yeah.
Yeah, that Jeremiah Wells is really good. But I did not see him taking a one-shot bomb to the jaw, just flattening him. We just don't see that. It's the second time he's ever been knocked out in his career. I mean, this guy gets into like pretty decent like stand-up fights with hard hitters. But Jeremiah Wells is the real deal. This is 3-0 now in the UFC, 3 finishes. Knocked out Warley Alves, which at the time was kind of like, oh, maybe it's just a short notice fluke type situation. Man, I don't think it is. I think this guy's legit. So that was impressive. Just again, no one cracks Court McGee like that. This is his 20th UFC fight, only the second time he's been knocked out. So that was really shocked me.
I feel bad for Court considering he's like the only fighter from Utah, like one of the only players from Utah on the card, and there's no way he's fighting Utah now.
Should have been on there. Bobby Maximus, come on.
Yeah. Virtual high five, AK. I went the exact same route. It's Jeremiah Wells. For that exact reason you just said. I picked Jeremiah to win the fight, but I didn't think it was going to go down like that. So good on him.
It was a high-level
crazy,
combo,
guys, I'm
too.
telling
It
you.
was a 1-2, and then he did a switch, and instead of coming with a hook, the hook came from it became a rear hook, and it was just a great shot. And, like, I think I saw someone notice, too, it was one of those shots, too, where Court McGee, they always say, like, the worst knockouts, the ones you don't even see. Court McGee saw the punch the whole time coming right at him, and he was just like, can't stop this, and just out cold. So yeah, high level technical knockouts tonight. Super fun.
All right, we'll take one more.
Oh, one more.
One more. Give me the best one.
While Casey looks, let me just say sorry. We before I just want to say that this may have surpassed my gymnastics score. I don't remember what it was. I think I said like 8.5 or 8.6, like maximum or something.
8.6. Yep.
Yeah, and I was like, it might. No, I think it hit it. But I will say though, I mean, if you want to make an argument that it surpassed it, and it was like a 9.5, close to a 10, I don't blame you, because this card on the previous show, I was way off on predicting. Like, I thought because it was great, because the matchups on paper were really competitive, and normally I say, when you have competitive matchups, you don't always get finishes. But this event, I feel like we saw like who these fighters really were, like in the most positive way. And I still think the matches on paper were really good. It's just that the winners, man, had like performances you just hadn't seen from them before. Cody Stamann got his first UFC finish. Roman Dolidze, that knee was amazing. That knee in the clinch was against the fence was effing awesome. I've never seen Roman Dolidze throw anything like that. Jeremiah Wells knocking out Court McGee, Natalia Silva coming out of nowhere and just schooling Jasmine Jasudavicius. Even Adrian Yanez, like we all expected a knockout, but for him to deliver so emphatically was just like amazing. So yeah, it's rare you see a card that has so many matchups that they're clearly not mismatches. I think a lot of them were 50-50, 60-40 matchups, and yet you got this amazing emphatic finish. So yeah, great job on the matchmakers and especially the fighters, and I'm glad they're all getting bonused up. Let's make that a normal thing. Finishes should be worth $50,000 or more. Come on.
Normalize finishing bonuses.
Yeah.
Yes. And I'm sure the UFC gives a big thank you to the PFL because they kind of set the bar very, very low for the weekend, and the UFC just took a rocket ship right past them. Like the open. I'm sorry, you're gonna keep getting it on this channel until you fix the pacing of these cards. Because I'm not spending 9 hours on a Friday night watching PFL. I'm not doing it. I'm just not gonna do it. So get better with the pacing. We'll have some better things to say. Is Lauzon versus Cowboy Curse now? If you guys missed this, and I don't know if you have seen this or not, but the fight was off. Lauzon tells the story about how he locked his knee up, putting socks on. And then he said, normally this is something that he could just stretch out and it pops back into place. It's a normal thing. This happens to him all the time. Day and a half, nothing happens. He can't walk, can't put any weight on it. He's in a wheelchair, getting wheeled around. He has to jump on his coach's back to get from place to place. Just really bad. So somebody sends him a YouTube video or some sort of video that he watched that was like, hey, I do this and I do these exercises, and when my knee locks up, I do this, and it automatically comes back into place. And guess what Joe Lauzon does? Takes this fan's advice, watches the video, knee pops back into place. Dude can walk. He can hop up and down on it. He can run. He can move around. And if that happened the day before, he would have fought tonight against Donald Cerrone. So insane. He just can't believe it. It's actually funny at this point what Joe Lauzon is going through. And this is crazy. Dana White said at the press conference that he's not going to rebook the fight. So I don't know. I think they're going to try.
But both guys are going to fight again. So just,
I mean, what's the rush? I mean, we're not. None of these guys are fighting 6 times this year. Like, just what's the rush? Like, we're not using. Come on, just book them again. Who cares?
I would like the UFC to book it at an agreed catch weight. Let these guys cut like to 160 maybe. We know they're lightweights, but don't make them give it. There's no reason for them to both cut to 155. Just they've both done it 2 times now, just for fun. Just fight again, 165. We'll pretend it's 55 and just move on. So we don't have to worry about any bad tacos or weird dehydrated knees or anything. But I want to put this last very positive comment up before we head out.
This is why I love fight nights from Tyrone Israel. You discover new fighters that have potential to become big fighters in the future. Listen, I feel like we are as positive about these fight night cards as anybody can be, right? We try to find if there's a bad main event, at least on paper, compared to others, and the card is just with a bunch of newcomers and maybe like 1 or 2 fight vets, I think we try to do our best to highlight those fights, try to find the positives in a card that a lot of people just aren't like rushing out to make sure that they're home for to watch, because we have to fill these nights. We have to fill these slots. It's mandated. We got to do it. And the UFC sometimes just cobbles these cards together and we get what we get. And sometimes people think you're negative by saying this is not the greatest card of all time and things of that nature. And I think it's fair to judge cards from time to time like that. However, when we have a card like this with a crowd, you're out of the damn Apex. It's not looking like an episode of WWE Raw. It's different. The crowd's into it. You have the Adrian Yanez moment. You have the Kevin Holland moment. You have all these cool things that happen throughout the card. It's just so much better. And this card delivered all of that. Tyrone's completely right, because we had fighters we had questions about provide answers, and we had fighters we didn't even know about at all come out and become bigger stars in the end of it. At least their stocks rise tremendously. This was an A to an A+ card for sure for everybody involved, the fighters, the fans, the people watching at home, everybody covering it. Like, we're all into it. We're all juiced up and jazzed up about it. This thing delivered in spades. Love this comment, Tyrone. AK, your final thoughts on this event?
Yeah, it's kind of like what you said. Listen, we've been bigging up this card for a while. I mean, as much as you can in our business when we're covering cards every week. Excuse me. If this card, whatever, underperforms ratings wise, buzz wise, no one's talking about mainstream, whatever, don't point the finger at us, because we were saying this card looks awesome. It looks better than a pay-per-view, or at least the most recent pay-per-view we saw. It has, kind of like for the reasons that Tyrone pointed out in the comments, like, you got new names, you had people stepping up in big situations. I mean, this was UFC London-esque. I mean, UFC London was like the default answer, I think. By the end of the year, we were all saying, what was the best fight night card of the year? It felt like, well, nothing's going to top UFC London. I'm going to have to go back and look at that card and maybe rewatch some of those fights. This was right up there. This didn't have that awesome ending you got with Tom Aspinall taking out like a perennial heavyweight contender. So that, might put that over the top for some people. And maybe the crowd was a little bit more, just a little bit more at like louder, I guess, in London. This crowd was pretty darn good too. Maybe they booed some stuff they shouldn't have. Maybe they were, I don't know, maybe they weren't 100% into every fight. But again, this is a 13-fight card. I thought the Texas crowd did a great job being into it. So yeah, I'm gonna have to stack these 2 cards up by the end of the year, because this was outstanding stuff. And one of those nights where it was a pleasure to cover. And right now, guys, it's not like 2 a.m. Eastern time. So it's all good. It's nothing but positivity.
Yeah.
And Jose, I mean, think about. I'll let you wrap, Casey. But Jose, think about this: as a fan of the high-level martial arts competitions, You go from UFC 275 to this card, and then next week, Jose, our worlds will collide a little bit because the man you are oh so high on is fighting the guy that I am oh so high on, Mateusz Gamrot versus Arman Tsarukyan. I mean, talk about high-level martial arts competition. And then into International Fight Week, Jose, this is like MMA watching heaven for you right now, is it not?
Yeah, it really is, because lightweight is the best division in MMA. Mateusz Gamrot is so good, and Arman Tsarukyan is so good. And if they were in featherweight or bantamweight or welterweight, they'd probably be top 6. But they're like not. Are they even top 10? Like if one of them is top 10, they're like number 9 maybe. Like if you want to tell me Arman Tsarukyan versus Mateusz Gamrot is a title fight in 2024, I'm gonna be like, yeah, obviously. They just happen to be fighting, 2 years early for 5 rounds. So sign me up for just that fight, and I'm in. And then obviously International Fight Week, that like Robbie Lawler might be like on the early prelim. So like, come on, that just tells you how good that fight card is going to be. So yeah, a lot of people in the MMA world like to, poke fun at the UFC, and for whatever reason they try to say certain fights are better in Bellator or KSW and all this stuff. But like that's silly most of the times because, the UFC, for as weird of main events as they do for Alexander Volkov versus Jairzinho Rosenstreich, they give us 5 rounds of Mateusz Gamrot versus Arman Tsarukyan. And if I get that, I will sit through 10 straight subpar heavyweight main events if I can get this, because then guess what happens later that month? We get Brian Ortega versus Yair Rodriguez. That fight's going to be bananas too. So like, sign me up for all the bad MMA heavyweight fights in the main event if this is what it leads to at least once or twice a year.
Love this fight. Casey, take us home, buddy.
Okay. No, just it's a joy watching fights sometimes. Tonight was one of those. This afternoon was one of those days. Yeah, just like I said, like I love being wrong. I love being so off on Kevin Holland. I love seeing the improvements of Joaquin Buckley. I was bummed out about a couple of decisions. There were 3 actual decisions in this card I did not agree with, but the card was awesome. Great job UFC making this card happen. Great job giving more money to these fighters, more bonuses. This is awesome. I feel like a lot of the fans and the media have maybe putting more pressure on the UFC. Hopefully that's why they're doing this, because the UFC could have done their regular, whatever. You get 4 performance bonuses, but they gave out more money. This is a good thing. Fighters deserve more money, especially these fighters. So it's going to be fun. And the next few weeks of our MMA Saturdays are going to be awesome. Very excited.
Yes, we have a very busy week next week because we have PFL, Bellator, BKFC, and
BKFC. Oh my God.
BKFC, which is actually a pretty solid card too.
It is.
And then UFC Vegas, whatever the hell it's going to be. UFC Awesome is what we're going to call it because it's Gamrot versus Tsarukyan. And that fight is just going to be awesome. I cannot wait for it. The countdown is on. It's on to UFC Awesome, everybody. AK, I will see you tomorrow for another episode of On to the Next One, which will be available on the MMA Fighting Podcasting Network before noon Eastern Time. But until then, my friends, for AK, for Casey, for Jose, I am Mike Heck. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the fights as much as we did. Good night, everybody.
Golf sucks. Watch fighting.
It's not true, but golf does not suck.
It's okay.